I opened the front door and froze. My husband, Robert, was leaning close to a woman I didn't recognize, her hand resting on his shoulder as if she owned the space. He turned at the sound of me and froze too. My chest tightened, my heart hammering like a drum I couldn't stop. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just watched. We'd been married for 22 years. 2 kids grown, a house full of memories. From the outside, we looked solid, steady, dependable. But that night, in that hall, it all unraveled in a single breath. Robert whispered, "Nothing." She smiled knowingly, and then he stepped away from her, trying, failing, to explain. I shut the door behind me without a word. My hands shook, clutching the frame. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. I drove. I didn't know where. The streets blurred. My mind ran through every subtle change I had ignored. His new cologne, the extra attention to his hair and suits, the way he always glanced at his phone before I could see it. At first I blamed stress, age, work. But the truth kept pressing against me, cold and unrelenting. I remembered the night he told me to stay close at the gala downtown. Stay close, not enjoy yourself, not celebrate us. Just stay close. And then he disappeared. That phrase, the memory, slammed back into me. I knew. I already knew what he was capable of. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. The next day, I didn't call him. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I packed a small bag instead. Clothes, toiletries, a few papers I knew I'd need. I left the house, walking past every familiar object without a backward glance. I slept in the guest room. My body was still, my mind racing. Every memory of our life together twisted sharp, like broken glass. I traced the patterns of our marriage, the silent evenings, the polite smiles, the moments I had explained away. Weeks passed. I settled into the apartment I rented, smaller, quiet. I walked in the mornings, letting the sunlight filter through the trees, noticing things I had never seen before. Small, ordinary things, real things. The calm was a stranger, but a welcome one. I read books I had ignored for years. Slowly, the weight of betrayal eased, replaced by clarity. My decision wasn't impulsive. It was the only one I could make for myself. Then one afternoon in a cafe, I saw him. Not Robert. David, the husband of the woman I had caught him with. Our eyes met. No words were needed at first, just recognition. He nodded. I nodded. He mentioned Robert's recent troubles, contracts lost, partners pulling back. I listened. No gloating, no triumph, just acknowledgement. I hadn't set out to destroy anything. I had only stopped protecting him. By then, the storm was over. My grief had weight, but it did not bind me. I had returned to myself. I could breathe. I could be steady. And I knew, finally, that the door left slightly open that night had taken from me what I needed to lose, only to give back something I had forgotten, my own strength. I didn't answer his calls. Not the first one, not the 10th. By the 3rd day, his voice changed. The first voicemail was confident, controlled. "Hey, we need to talk. You left in a hurry." The 5th one sounded irritated. "This isn't like you. Pick up." By the 12th, he sounded scared. "Amanda, please." I listened to that one twice. Then I deleted them all. I was sitting at my small kitchen table when the phone rang again. Same name, same number. I let it ring. The sound echoed in the quiet apartment, loud, annoying, persistent. Then it stopped. A few seconds later, someone knocked, not gently. 3 hard knocks. I froze. My breath slowed. My body went still in a way that surprised even me. He knew where I was. Of course he did. I walked to the door, not fast, not slow, just steady. I didn't open it right away. "Amanda? I know you're in there." His voice, Lower than usual, careful. I opened the door halfway. He looked smaller. Same suit, wrinkled now. Tie loose, eyes tired. I just want to talk, he said. I stepped back and let him in. He walked in like a guest, not like a husband. That was new. He looked around the apartment, took in the space, the plain walls, the single chair, the unpacked box in the corner. "This is where you've been?" he asked quietly. "Yes." He nodded. Slow. "This isn't... You don't have to do this?" I leaned against the counter. "I already did." He exhaled, long, heavy. I made a mistake. There it was. That word again. I didn't react. He stepped closer. "We can fix this. We've been through worse." I tilted my head slightly. "Have we?" He stopped. Silence stretched between us. "I ended it," he said quickly. "With her. It's done." I watched his face, watched the way his eyes searched mine, for hope, for weakness. He didn't find either. "When?" I asked. He hesitated. That was enough. "Yesterday," he admitted. I let out a small breath. "Not when I found you," I said. "Not before that." He rubbed his face. "I didn't know how to..." "You didn't want to," I cut in. He flinched. That was new, too. Robert had never flinched around me. "You're overreacting," he said, softer now, trying a different angle. I almost smiled. "Am I?" It didn't mean anything. I pushed myself off the counter and stood straight. "That's worse." He frowned. "If it meant nothing," I continued, "then you risked everything for nothing." He had no answer. I walked past him and picked up a folder from the table. He noticed it. "What's that?" "Paperwork." "For what?" I met his eyes. "For the divorce." He went still, completely still. "You're serious," he said. "Yes. Amanda, don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said calmly. "I'm responding." He shook his head. "You're throwing away 22 years. I held his gaze. "No," I said quietly. "You did that? That landed. I saw it. In his shoulders. In his face. The realization. Not about the affair. About me. About the fact that I wasn't going to fight for him." He reached for my hand. I stepped back. Just one step. But it was enough. That's when something changed in his eyes. Not love. Not regret. Fear. "What do you want?" he asked. I paused. For a second, I thought about everything. The house, the money, the life we built. Then I said, "Fair." He let out a small laugh. "You'll get fair." I didn't respond, because I already knew something he didn't, and that was the moment the balance of power quietly shifted. He still thought this was going to be a negotiation. He had no idea. I had been keeping records for years. I arrived at the law office early. The building looked ordinary, brick and glass, nothing like the houses Robert had bragged about hosting parties in. I stepped inside, the lobby quiet, the receptionist glancing up and smiling politely. I gave my name. She nodded, picked up the phone, and said, "Mr. Harlan will see you now." I sat in the chair, legs crossed, hands folded, pretending calm. My mind raced. Every detail I had collected over the years, every ledger, every email, every document Robert thought I didn't notice, it all mattered now. The office door opened. Mr. Harlan stepped out. He was tall, with gray hair at the temples and eyes sharp enough to cut glass. He didn't smile, but there was respect there. Recognition. "Amanda," he said, voice firm, "we need to go over everything you've gathered." I nodded. My stomach tightened. This was the moment I had been preparing for quietly, patiently, for months. Robert had underestimated me. Every dismissive comment, every sneer, every assumption that I was powerless. It all worked in my favor now. We went into his office. Papers, files, spreadsheets, and statements were spread across the table. I could feel the weight of them, not just numbers, but proof. Proof that Robert's empire, the one he paraded around, wasn't untouchable. Proof that he had made reckless moves assuming I wouldn't notice. Harlan looked at me, waiting. I cleared my throat. I want everything evaluated, I said. Every asset, every liability. I want transparency. He nodded. You'll have it. But I need you to understand, this is not just about numbers. This is about leverage, strategy, timing. I leaned back slightly, eyes scanning the stacks. I understand, I whispered. He began explaining. Accounts hidden in my name but controlled by him. Companies over-leveraged. Leases and loans stacked so no outsider could see the imbalance. He looked at me, expression measured. This is why he thought you would never act. Because you were underestimated. But you have control now, complete control. I swallowed. It felt surreal. 22 years of marriage. 22 years of invisible labor, patience, observation, all now translating into a position of undeniable authority. We went through the numbers line by line. I asked questions. Harlan answered. No fluff, no sugarcoating. Every misstep, every assumption Robert had made was documented. Every overconfidence, every lie, every underestimation, it would work in my favor. I felt a calm rising in me, not triumph, not vengeance, clarity. I had been invisible, doubted, minimized. Now the truth was mine to wield. Quietly, methodically, I began mapping out the steps. Settlement, negotiation, exposure of truths. Then Harlan paused. You're ready for the next step. Are you sure you want to proceed? I looked at him, steady, controlled. Yes. But not for revenge, for accountability, for respect, and for my peace. He nodded. That's the right approach. I gathered my papers, folding them carefully. Every sheet, a piece of proof, every figure a reminder that power often lies hidden, waiting for the underestimated to find it. As I stood to leave, Harlan said softly, Remember? The strongest victories are those where you remain composed. Let them underestimate you, then show them the truth. I nodded again. The office door closed behind me, the quiet click a punctuation mark. Outside, the city moved along, oblivious. But I felt something shift deep inside. I was no longer just a wife wronged. I was a woman aware of her power. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled, knowing the story was mine to tell and mine to control. The morning air was sharp when I stepped out of the apartment. The city smelled of coffee and rain. My hands gripped the folder tight. Every document inside reminded me that I had been invisible for too long. Today, that would change. I drove to the courthouse, taking the long route so I could think. Windows down, wind biting my cheeks, I felt alive in a way I hadn't for years. Robert would be there. He didn't know I was prepared. He thought he could charm his way through the proceedings, intimidate and bluff his way past the truth. He had no idea. The steps of the courthouse echoed under my heels. The marble smelled cool and sterile. I paused for a moment. A deep breath. My heart hammered. But it wasn't fear. It was focus, determination. I walked in and registered with the clerk. Amanda Rivers, I said, voice steady. She nodded, glanced at her schedule, and directed me to the mediation room. Robert arrived not long after. His face was carefully neutral, but I could see it in his eyes, the arrogance, the confidence. He still underestimated me. I let him talk first. Smooth words, practiced tones, reminders of the past, hints of guilt he thought I would carry for him. I smiled politely, folding my hands in front of me, listening, calculating. Then it was my turn. I laid the documents on the table one by one. Bank statements, contracts, emails, evidence of mismanagement. I didn't need to raise my voice. Every figure, every date, every signature spoke louder than words. Robert's smirk faded slowly. His hands twitched. He tried to interject, but I was already moving to the next file. The mediator glanced at me, then at him, eyebrows raised. I met his gaze. My calm unnerved him. He leaned back, trying to regain control. I didn't give it. I went through the debts, the overstated profits, the personal expenses charged to the business, and the assets I had personally secured over the years. Each revelation landed like a hammer. "You've been thorough," Robert finally said, voice tight. He couldn't finish the sentence. I didn't pause. I didn't look triumphant. I looked measured, in control. The mediator nodded. "Ms. Rivers, you have a clear claim here. Are you prepared to negotiate based on these facts?" "Yes," I said, "but not for revenge, for fairness, for respect." Robert opened his mouth, closed it, repeated. I could see the panic rising, the reality that the woman he had dismissed, belittled, and underestimated was now in full command of the situation. He tried charm. I didn't respond. He tried intimidation. I didn't flinch. Every move he thought would control me only reinforced my position. By the end of the morning, terms were laid out. Equitable, balanced, truth acknowledged. No theatrics, no screaming, just justice quietly served. I left the courthouse and breathed in the city air. The sun warmed my face. Every step down the street felt lighter, stronger. I had been underestimated my entire life. Today proved that patience, preparation, and knowing your worth mattered more than anyone's opinion. I smiled faintly as I walked past the coffee cart on the corner. The aroma was comforting. I reached into my pocket, feeling the folder that now symbolized not just proof, but freedom. And I realized, finally, that power was never about revenge. It was about standing tall and demanding to be seen. I walked into the office building and paused at the revolving door. The glass reflected my face, calm, controlled, not like the woman Robert had known for years. He had assumed I would crumble. He had assumed wrong. I took the elevator to the 20th floor. The hum of the cables, the faint vibration under my feet, it steadied me. My hands gripped the folder in my bag. Every sheet inside was a piece of armor, every number a shield. I was ready. The secretary looked up as I entered the office. She knew me slightly from the past few months of calls and letters. "Ms. Rivers," she said, politeness carefully measured. "Mr. Caldwell will see you now." I nodded and walked into the conference room. He was there. Sitting behind the polished table, papers in front of him, his expression neutral but alert. Robert Caldwell, same height, same posture, but his eyes flickered when he saw me. "You're early," he said. Voice calm, trying for casual. I didn't answer. I sat down, placing my bag carefully beside the chair. My gaze never left his. "You've gone through the files?" he asked finally. "Yes," I said, "every one of them. I understand now, completely." He leaned back, almost smug. "Amanda, you don't need to—" "I do," I interrupted. "I need to. I need clarity. I need honesty. And I need it now." He frowned. Small movement, barely noticeable, but I saw it. The slight tightening of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. The mask he wore every day slipped just for a fraction. I opened my folder, handing him the first set of statements. He picked them up slowly, scanning the sheets. I let him. I waited, quiet still, watching every micro-expression, every twitch, every sigh. This is a lot," he said finally, voice slightly higher than normal. He hadn't expected this. He had thought that years of condescension, of treating me like I was invisible, would keep me powerless. "It's only what I found," I said. Calm, firm, not accusing, just fact. He set the papers down, shifting uneasily. "Amanda, we can negotiate. Yes, I said. We will negotiate based on what's fair, based on what's real, not on your assumptions, not on what you think I don't know. He tried to interrupt, tried to charm, tried to distract. I ignored every attempt. My eyes didn't flinch. My posture didn't waver. I was the same woman he had dismissed for 22 years, but now the one he had underestimated had power. We went through the list of assets, the mismanaged accounts, the hidden liabilities. Every time he thought he could distract me, I brought it back to the facts. Every time he tried charm, I answered with patience. Every attempt at intimidation hit a wall. By the end, he was silent, leaning back, jaw tight, eyes darting. He realized the tables had turned. He realized that the years he thought he controlled had only sharpened me. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just closed the folder slowly, letting the weight of the truth sit between us. Do you understand now? I asked. He nodded, silent, accepting. I stood, my legs firm, my hands steady. Every step toward the door was deliberate, every breath measured. Outside, the city moved, oblivious. Inside, I had claimed what was mine, not for revenge, not for cruelty, but for recognition, for fairness, and for respect. And as I walked out, I knew this was the beginning of something new, something I had earned, quietly, patiently, and deliberately. The first knock on my apartment door startled me. I'd been sitting in the quiet, sipping coffee, listening to the hum of the city outside. I didn't expect anyone. Not today. Not after the courthouse. I opened the door a crack. David, the man whose wife had been tangled with Robert, stood there. His eyes were calm but intense. "We need to talk," he said. I hesitated. The apartment felt smaller somehow, closer. My chest tightened. I stepped aside. He entered, shoes silent on the hardwood. He glanced at the folder on the counter. "You handled that well," he said quietly. Not a compliment, more like recognition. I just nodded. No words came easily. We sat opposite each other at the small kitchen table. He leaned forward, elbows resting, hands clasped. "I never wanted you to be in that position," he said. "Seeing it firsthand, the betrayal, it's hard." I looked down at my hands. The coffee cup warmed them, but it didn't soothe the weight. "I've learned," I said. "I've learned patience, observation, preparation, and the importance of standing my ground." He nodded slowly. "You were underestimated. He thought he controlled everything. But you were collecting everything he overlooked." A small laugh escaped me, almost ironic. I suppose he did. My eyes met his. There was no gloating in me, only clarity, only awareness of the balance that had shifted. David shifted in his seat, glancing around. "There's more you can do. Not revenge exactly, but leverage. Protect what's yours and yourself." I leaned back, absorbing his words. My heart slowed slightly. The rhythm of the apartment, the distant traffic, the soft hum of the refrigerator, it all seemed sharper now, focused, each sound a reminder that I was alert, alive. He placed his hand briefly on the table. "You have power here," he said. "Not just legal, but real. Don't underestimate it." I nodded. It was the confirmation I needed. For years, Robert had dismissed me, belittled me, assumed I would not act. Now he would discover exactly how wrong he had been. I gathered the folder, sliding it into my bag carefully, each page a testament to observation, to careful work, to the years of unnoticed effort. Every ledger, every account, every note would become a tool, a shield, and a measure of justice. David stood. "Be careful. Don't let him see you lose control. That's when people make mistakes." I exhaled. I won't lose control. The door clicked behind him. Silence fell again. I moved to the window and looked at the city below. Cars, pedestrians, the hum of daily life. They didn't know what was coming. I didn't need them to. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to feel something close to calm. Not relief, not victory, not yet, but focus, power, clarity. I would act, slowly, deliberately. Every move measured, every word calculated. Robert thought he had the upper hand. He was wrong. And I knew, when the time came, that he would see the full extent of the woman he had dismissed, ignored, and underestimated for 22 years. The courthouse doors felt heavier than usual as I stepped inside. The marble floors echoed beneath my heels, each click a reminder that today was not just another day. I carried my folder carefully, the papers inside thick with evidence, with proof. Robert was here. I could feel it. He was waiting in the hall, leaning casually against the wall, his expression calm, composed, but there was tension in his jaw. His eyes flicked to me, calculating, trying to read my mood. He thought he had me figured out. He thought I would be frantic, unsure, maybe even pleading. I didn't run. I didn't flinch. I walked straight to the mediation room, every step deliberate. The receptionist gave me a polite nod. I returned it with one of my own, calm, collected. She didn't know what I carried, what I had uncovered, how long I had waited for this day. Robert followed, his footsteps softer now, but still there. He tried small talk, casual remarks about the weather, the courthouse, the length of the proceedings. I ignored it, folded my hands on the table, waited. The mediator glanced at us both, sensing the tension. "Shall we begin?" she asked. I nodded. I laid the first set of documents down. Bank statements, correspondence, contract notes. He picked them up, scanned them quickly, brow furrowing. I watched. Every micro-expression told me he knew the power had shifted. "You've really done your homework," he said cautiously. There was no charm in it, no sneer, just recognition, reluctant and grudging. "Yes," I said softly. "I've been patient. I've observed. I've waited." He leaned back, trying to reclaim some authority, some semblance of control. "Amanda, we can discuss terms." "We can— terms?" I interrupted, voice calm but firm. "We will discuss facts, not assumptions, not what you hope I don't see. Only facts. Every asset, every liability, every misstep you made while assuming I would stay passive." His hands twitched. I saw the tension climb in his shoulders. He tried charm, tried threats, tried to play on old habits, but nothing worked. The woman he thought small and powerless now held the leverage. We went through every item line by line. Debts overstated, assets misrepresented, companies over-leveraged, hidden accounts. Every time he thought he could distract me, I brought it back to the numbers. Every time he tried intimidation, I remained still, watching, breathing. By mid-morning, he was pale, silent, struggling to find words. Every smirk, every attempt at sarcasm, every condescending glance had been neutralized by preparation and patience. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply let the facts speak. The mediator nodded, taking notes, eyes flicking between us. She sensed what I had known all along. Power is quiet until it's recognized. Control is measured until it's acknowledged. I gathered the papers slowly, letting the weight of the proof settle between us. Robert looked at me. His mouth opened, closed. He had no lines left to play. I stood, my movements deliberate. Every step toward the door felt like a declaration. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. Inside, I had claimed what was mine. Not for revenge, not for cruelty, but for recognition, for fairness, for respect. The courthouse air hit me as I walked outside, cold, sharp. The folder felt lighter now. I breathed deeply. Today had been hard, tense, exhausting, but I had done more than I thought I could. I had acted. I had controlled. And in that moment, I understood fully. Underestimation is a gift. When they think you are small, quiet, powerless, they forget you are also prepared, patient, and unstoppable. I parked the car and sat for a moment, hands tight on the steering wheel. The city around me buzzed, indifferent. People hurrying, horns honking, life moving forward like nothing had happened. But for me, everything had shifted. I walked into the office building and the receptionist looked up. Her eyes registered recognition this time. She didn't know all the details. She didn't need to. She just knew I had changed. I smiled faintly and nodded. "I have a meeting with Mr. Caldwell," I said. He was waiting in the corner office, papers stacked neatly, but his eyes were alert. He tried to hide it. The tension that came from knowing I had the upper hand. I could see it in the subtle flick of his jaw, the quick swallow, the way his hands gripped the armrests when he sat down. I closed the door behind me and set the folder on the table. "Robert," I said calmly, "we need to review everything. Every account, every contract, every loan. Everything you assumed I wouldn't notice." He shifted in his seat. "Amanda, you don't have to—" "I do," I interrupted. My voice was quiet, steady, but the weight behind it made him pause. "I've waited long enough. I've been underestimated for years. Today we get clarity." He tried a small smile. "We can negotiate," he said. "We can settle this quietly." "Yes," I agreed, based on the facts, on fairness, on recognition of work done and oversight ignored. He leaned back, attempting to mask panic. I didn't move. I let him feel it. Let him sit in the realization that the woman he assumed powerless now held everything. We went through the spreadsheets line by line, the hidden accounts, the overstated profits, the personal loans he had taken out against our assets. Every time he tried to interject, I brought it back to the facts. Every attempt at charm bounced off. Every attempt at intimidation failed. The mediator glanced between us, eyebrows raised. She didn't say anything, but I knew she understood. Control is quiet, power is measured, and today it was mine. Robert's hands twitched. His breathing quickened slightly. He tried reasoning. I remained composed, calm, focused, patient. Every pause, every adjustment, every hesitation he made only highlighted my command of the situation. By mid-afternoon, he was pale, silent, the smugness gone, the arrogance dissolved. He realized how much he had misjudged me, not just emotionally, professionally, strategically. I gathered the folders slowly, folding them with care, every page a weapon, every document a reminder that patience and observation were far more powerful than intimidation or charm. I stood and walked toward the door, deliberate in every step. Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. No words left. Not for this woman. Not for the force he had underestimated for 2 decades. Outside, the air was crisp. The city continued oblivious to the storm inside the office. But I felt something shift inside me. Focus, control, clarity. I had acted. I had claimed my space. I had ensured respect. And as I walked down the steps, the sun cutting across the street in warm, sharp lines, I realized the truth. Being underestimated is a weapon if you learn to wield it. Today, I had wielded it perfectly. The elevator dinged and I stepped out on the street, the city humming around me. Traffic moved in steady lines, horns, tires on wet asphalt, distant construction. I felt lighter than I had in months. The folder in my bag had been returned to the office, but the knowledge it carried stayed with me, heavy and precise. I walked to my car, heels clicking against the sidewalk. People passed by, strangers with their own lives, unaware of the storm that had passed inside that office. I let the sunlight hit my face. It warmed me, not like comfort, not yet, but like permission. Permission to move forward. My phone buzzed. It was Diane, her number. I ignored it. She'd been a friend for 20 years, but her loyalty to Robert had been obvious for too long. She had smiled too brightly at his jokes, asked about his schedule more than mine. I didn't need her right now. I didn't need anyone right now. I got into my car and drove. Streets blurred. I didn't care about traffic. Not really. My mind was busy with calculations, plans, possibilities. I could see every step before me, not impulsive, not reckless, measured. I was still underestimated, still thought to be powerless. But every document, every ledger, every note I had kept gave me leverage I could feel in my hands. I stopped at a small cafe, ordered coffee, sat in the corner, watching the world. People laughed, argued, made calls, the sound of their lives, ordinary, normal. I let it wash over me. I had been immersed in tension, confrontation, calculation for weeks. Now the quiet reminded me I could breathe, I could observe, I could plan. Robert's calls started again. 1, 2, 3. I ignored them. He didn't leave messages this time, just hung up. Each missed ring a reminder that he had underestimated my restraint, my patience. Then a knock at the window. I looked up. A man in a suit, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning, alert. Not familiar, not threatening, just professional. He handed me a note through the slightly open window. I opened it carefully. It read, "Your assets are secure. No action required from you today. Watch and wait." I looked up at him. He nodded once, sharply, then walked away. The sound of his heels on the concrete faded into the city noise. I put the note in my bag. My lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. The underestimated woman they thought weak, cautious, patient was quietly in control. I finished my coffee slowly, listening to the faint hum of the espresso machine, the clatter of cups, the soft murmurs of patrons. I let it settle. The weight of years of dismissal, belittlement, and betrayal began to lift. Not completely, not yet, but enough to feel strength in my own presence. I left the cafe and walked down the street. The sun lowered in the sky, orange and crisp. Shadows stretched long across the pavement. I felt the rhythm of my steps, deliberate, steady, like a heartbeat I had forgotten existed. Robert thought he had the power, the advantage. He believed I would panic, crumble, plead. He was wrong. Every underestimated gesture, every ignored comment, every silent observation I had kept had built a foundation. And now that foundation was strong, unshakable. I exhaled slowly. The city continued around me, unaware, and I smiled, not triumphantly, not cruelly, just clearly, completely aware that the next time Robert thought he had the upper hand, he would find it gone, and I would be ready. I arrived at the law firm just after 8 in the morning. The lobby smelled faintly of coffee and polish. My heels clicked against the tile, a steady, deliberate rhythm. The receptionist looked up, surprised to see me this early. I gave her a nod and walked past without a word. Today, no one would underestimate me. Mr. Harlan's office door was slightly ajar. I stepped inside. He looked up from the pile of papers on his desk. "You're early," he said. I didn't answer. I placed my bag on the floor, let it rest there. Every document I had gathered over the past months was inside, carefully organized. The weight of them was nothing compared to the clarity they brought me. Robert sat across the table, expression controlled, but there was tension there. A flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He straightened his tie, tried a small smile. I didn't respond. I leaned back in my chair, calm, deliberate, observing, patient. "You've gone through all the files," he said finally, voice low, cautious. "Yes," I replied. "I've been patient. I've been underestimated. I've waited. And now I am ready." He shifted, fidgeting with a pen. "We can negotiate," he said. "We can settle this quietly." "Yes," I agreed. "We will negotiate. Not on your assumptions, not on what you think I cannot see, only on facts, on fairness, on recognition. The papers were laid out, each ledger, each email, each account carefully stacked. I handed them over one by one. He glanced at each, scanning, brow furrowing. His confidence began to waver. I watched, quietly. I didn't speak unnecessarily. I didn't rush. Every pause forced him to acknowledge the weight of my preparation. The mediator, seated to the side, glanced between us. I caught the look, understanding. She saw what I had known all along. Power is quiet. Power is measured. And now it was undeniable. Robert tried charm, tried negotiation, tried to intimidate. I let none of it penetrate. I remained still, my eyes steady, my voice calm when I spoke, every word precise, every question calculated. I led the conversation. He stumbled over every point, every claim, every line of defense I dismantled methodically. By mid-morning, he was pale. His hands twitched. He tried reasoning. I listened. I didn't flinch. Every moment reinforced that I was not the woman he had dismissed, belittled, and underestimated for 22 years. I gathered the document slowly, each paper a testament to patience, observation, and resolve. I closed the folder and stood. Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. No words left to control me. Not for me, not today. I walked towards the door deliberately, each step measured. The hallway felt expansive, the air sharp and clean. Outside, the city carried on, oblivious. I could hear the distant hum of traffic, the faint murmur of pedestrians. None of it mattered. I had claimed what was mine, not for revenge, not for malice, for recognition, for fairness, for respect. I exhaled slowly. Every step down the courthouse steps was deliberate, every breath steady. I felt the quiet power in my chest. The underestimated woman they assumed powerless was no longer invisible, and in that clarity, I understood fully. Patience, observation, and preparation were stronger than any assumption. Today, I had proven it. I unlocked the door to my new apartment and stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of paint and clean floors. It was smaller than my old house. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room that barely fit a sofa. I set my bag down and let it rest. The space was quiet, almost unnerving at first. I walked to the window. The street below was calm, people moving about their morning routines, cars, coffee shops, distant footsteps, normal life, ordinary. I breathed it in slowly, felt it settle over my shoulders like a weight I had been carrying for years was finally gone. I unpacked a few essentials, clothes, a kettle, a small stack of books I had been meaning to read. Everything else stayed in the boxes, untouched. I didn't want clutter. I wanted clarity. I wanted the start of a life measured in my own rules, my own decisions, my own space. The phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Robert's name. I ignored it. Twice. 3 times. His messages piled up. Apologies, explanations, pleas, promises. None of them mattered anymore. Not a word would change what had already been decided. I had reclaimed my control. I made tea and sat at the small table. The warmth seeped into my hands. I thought about the years spent feeling invisible, underappreciated, dismissed, every microsecond of belittlement, every ignored contribution, every slight smile meant to undermine me. It had all prepared me for this moment. Then the knock came. Soft, hesitant. I didn't move immediately. I waited. It came again. I rose, walked slowly to the door, and peeked out. A delivery man. A package. Nothing more. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I had been holding. Small victories, even ones as ordinary as this, felt monumental. I spent the afternoon walking the neighborhood, noticing details I'd never seen before. The way sunlight glinted off the window panes, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery down the block, the laughter of children crossing the street. Life was ordinary, but it was mine. I had permission to notice it, to inhabit it fully, to breathe without restraint. I called Diane. Her voice came, concerned, familiar. "How are you holding up?" she asked. I smiled faintly. "I'm steady," I said. "More than I have been in years." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "It sounds like you found your footing." I hung up and looked out the window again. The city hummed, indifferent, and I felt a quiet satisfaction. Not revenge, not malice, not triumph, just presence. Power held quietly, respect claimed without force. As evening fell, I sat on the couch. The city lights reflected on the walls. I allowed myself to imagine the coming days, the freedom to make decisions without fear, the ability to protect my peace, the knowledge that no one could belittle or underestimate me again. I poured another cup of tea. The warmth settled into my hands, and I felt it through my chest, steady and reassuring. I smiled, not because life had been easy, not because the past was gone, but because I had survived it. And now, finally, I could move forward on my own terms. The sun was low when I stepped out onto the street, the sky turning shades of gray and soft gold. The city felt different today, quieter somehow, as if it had noticed the shift in me. My bag was light, my steps deliberate. I was walking toward the future I had been building quietly, patiently, over the past months. I passed the cafe where I had spent hours thinking, planning, letting the weight of betrayal and strategy settle into something I could hold. The bell above the door jingled as I entered, but I didn't pause. I knew the place, the rhythm, the sounds. It felt ordinary, but today ordinary was mine to claim. David was there, sitting at the corner table, tablet open, eyes focused, yet alert. He looked up, saw me, and gave a small nod. Not a smile, not a greeting, just recognition. I returned it, sat across from him. The chair creaked softly under my weight. My heartbeat was steady, my breathing measured. I felt the calm that comes after storms, the quiet power of someone underestimated. "You're early," he said, his voice calm but deliberate. He studied me carefully, trying to read the woman who had walked through fire and emerged whole. I sipped my coffee, letting the steam warm my hands, my chest. "I wanted to be ready," I said, "to think, to see clearly before we start." He nodded. "Good, because clarity is everything now." His eyes flicked to the bag beside me. The documents inside? He didn't ask. He didn't need to. He knew their weight. He knew what I held. Not just facts, not just numbers. Evidence of persistence, of observation, of a power he had long dismissed. We talked then, quietly, carefully. Not about revenge, not about victory, about clarity, about steps, about choices, about what it meant to move forward with dignity and control. Every word he spoke was measured, every glance deliberate. I responded in kind, no emotion to cloud judgment, just fact, observation, strategy. Outside, the streets hummed, cars, footsteps, the distant laughter of children. Life continued, indifferent to the small corner where two people calculated their next moves. I let it settle around me. I let it anchor me. I had endured dismissal, betrayal, humiliation. I had rebuilt from it, slowly, carefully, methodically. I left the cafe later, the sunlight fading, casting long shadows across the pavement. My steps were steady even. I passed the familiar buildings, the sounds of the city washing over me, and I felt it. Not triumph, not anger, not satisfaction. Something quieter, stronger. a sense of completion, a sense that I was finally seen. I thought about the years of underestimation, the smiles that hid contempt, the dismissals, the small moments of disregard, and I realized that all of it had led me here, to this quiet command, to this calm, deliberate control over my own life. The air was cool against my face. My hands rested lightly on the straps of my bag. I took a deep breath, felt it fill my lungs, felt it steady my chest, and I knew fully, clearly, that the story was mine now. Every step forward would be mine to decide, every choice mine to make, every moment mine to hold. If you find yourself underestimated, overlooked, dismissed, remember this. Power is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it waits patiently until you are ready to claim it. And when you do, it changes everything.